We just got a massive update from Beyond Skyrim, and specifically they're showing off Beyond Skyrim Cyrodiil, and this is in depth, and by in depth I mean multi-hour gameplay in depth. This rather massive update shows off a lot of the new content they have around Skingrad. They just recently released a totally new teaser around this, and that's kind of just the appetizer to the larger gameplay. During this we get some panning shots of the Oblivion-based city, and it looks absolutely amazing. Still incredibly dense, but you can see the visual fidelity from Oblivion to Skyrim's engine is just on a different level. But even some of the more minor things like the flame visual effects just look significantly better here. Honestly, even better than what we have in Skyrim to a degree. And you'll even notice some changes with the city overall, and that's because this is a different Skingrad. Beyond Skyrim is taking place at the time of Skyrim. So even though the world space will largely be a remake of what was there with Oblivion, there will be some fundamental and notable changes to that world. We are revisiting the location of Oblivion nearly 200 years later during the events of Skyrim, where you'll literally be able to just walk from Skyrim to Cyrodiil. And during this trailer, we start to see some of the changes that have happened and even how some people are really trying to hold on to the old. The safety is declining in Skingrad, and the citizens are very frustrated over this, specifically over the inaction from the local government. And Janice Hasseldor is being blamed for all of this being a vampire character who was the former Count of Skingrad in Oblivion. He's still around by the events of Beyond Skyrim because, he's a vampire, and seemingly he'll be integral to this story, but is he really the one at fault, or is he just being used as a scapegoat? And during this trailer, we get a look at a bunch of the content that has been recreated for this mod. Some exceptionally well done armors and even some weapons in these combat sequences. We can see Oblivion zombies got quite the facelift with this mod, and I absolutely adore the design of these guys, although showing them for too long could get this video demonetized. So to avoid that, I want to introduce you to today's video sponsor with Youtooz. Youtooz makes designer collectibles that capture the joy of the internet, including things like your favorite creators with Jacksepticeye, your favorite TV shows, video games, animes, and more. And Youtooz recently collaborated with Bethesda to bring Fallout, and probably more importantly for many of you watching, Skyrim to life. They just sent me two of their brand new Skyrim collectibles, with the Dragonborn and the very meta Arrow to the Knee, which does feel like just a perfect way to celebrate Skyrim on a shelf or your desk. And they get stand on their own, no extra stand needed, which honestly may seem minor, but I really love that feature. But if you do like what you see, you'll have to act fast, because every figure Youtooz creates is a limited edition. Once they sell out, you'll never be able to get them again. And when you go to youtooz.com, you'll probably notice that their collectibles and plushies don't just stop at video games. It includes all kinds of other creators and even the best TV show ever created. Yeah, that's Breaking Bad. If you haven't watched it, watch it. So if you don't want to miss out, or if you want to pick up the perfect gift for a Skyrim or Fallout fan, head over to youtooz.com today and grab the Bethesda collection now. But looking back at Beyond Skyrim, even in addition to just the zombies, there are a bunch of other creatures they show off. The Minotaur looks absolutely horrifying. I think specifically it's the fact that you're facing a Minotaur in a very claustrophobic setting, which makes things just a lot worse overall. But even beyond that, the Daedroth are coming back. If you're not familiar, these are almost alligator-like fire-breathing reptiles that you can conjure in Oblivion, and even later on in this video, we're going to have some more explicit gameplay looking at these guys in action. And as I mentioned before, this trailer was really more of the appetizer. It was a bit of a highlight reel of some of the big things they are introducing and adding with this, but I've always been more of a fan of those extended looks. And this team also gave us a very extended look as they played this mod and really just focused on this particular area of the mod for several hours in a recent live stream. They start off the stream showing bits of Bruma. Bruma, if you don't know, is actually an already released aspect of Beyond Skyrim that you can download right now, and even just recently it did get an update with some new map markers if you want to check that out. But this intro and start to the live stream was a pretty special moment because you kind of get to see this transition, or what it'll actually be like to play all of these mods together, to go from Bruma to all of these various cities, but notably in this video, Skingrad. But just think about this potential, getting to download this one day and having this list of travel destinations available to you. That is amazing. And it's even more amazing when you actually get to see one. You see that transition to Skingrad as you arrive there, which this too was a pretty impactful moment in my eyes, because this is the thing you're going to get to experience when you finally download this. The steps, the walking around you'll get to do. The city looks absolutely stunning. It's in a rather desolate state because it is midnight as they're filming this part, but still the visual fidelity here is just on a completely different level. As simple as it does sound, the cobblestone ground as well as that wall design are what really stood out to me, at least at first. It's very familiar. You can compare it to Oblivion and you immediately recognize what's going on here, but also just way better looking. They show off an academy in Skingrad, with the updates in the 200-year time jump from Oblivion to Skyrim, and more specifically to Beyond Skyrim Cyrodiil. One of the things they wanted to do with this city is have it better represent the culture that is here, that being a focus on knowledge. But not all is well here, and later on we could even see a scene which is a bit of a dispute between two parties. This reflecting some of the opinions of the people who live here, a divide between the Empire loyalists and the Dominion supporters. And you can see how things nearly evolve into a fight on their own, and this is all kind of just happening around you. You're not even a character in this mini story, you're just witnessing it happen. There's a few other things like this around the city, and even public notices are coming back with this mod, which I think all just serve to make this city feel very alive. And one of the interesting parts about this overall is the city layout is largely identical to Oblivion, because of course changing a city not super easy. And other things are laid out almost identically. Some of the buildings are actually going to have different tenants, whether it be the family that lives in a certain location or even the business that operates there. For many of the notable characters, the inhabitants of their homes will be descendants of who was there in Oblivion, but they're also taking into account the time jump and how things in the city may have changed. We go to the Synod Conclave, which is one of my favorite interiors they show during this stream. The Synod are the imperial authority on magic, and even in their building, they do have custom-made enchanting and alchemy tables. But the stream wasn't just focusing on the inside of the city. Don't worry, we'll work our way back there. We got to see a bit also of the outside and some of the immediate surrounding areas. We can see a vigilant camp, and they even describe how there are rumors of vampires being about in Skingrad. And as a result, the vigilants have settled in here. Vampirism in Skingrad is going to be a core part of some of their quests. It'll be a theme that is present throughout. We don't really know what this overarching story will be or what kind of turns it'll take. They're specifically not spoiling anything, but vampires are clearly something of concern, and you're seeing how this world responds to that. Which, speaking of quests, we also do get to see some quest gameplay during this. There's a quest for a trading company where we need to deliver a message and a bottle of wine. This brings us a bit more into the countryside of this area. You can see those beautiful environments that were crafted for this mod, and importantly, how much more lush and green things are compared to Skyrim. Oblivion's world has always been so different. And one of the common questions always around this is there an ENB in the background? And no, this is just how things will look with this mod. Obviously, you can add an ENB on top of it, but by default, this is just the weathers and the environments on their own. And doing this quest, we work our way over to Southold, implemented in its familiar location just off the main road as a border town connecting Cyrodiil to Elsewhere. Cyrodiil and Elsewhere are actually going to share a world space, so this will be one of the most seamless transitions you'll be able to do in all of the Beyond Skyrim projects. And you can see here and kind of imagine how one day you'll just be able to walk across there. You'll be able to transition from one area to another. And taken together, the views from Southold are some of the best they show during this entire stream. You can see the castle off in the distance, the lush vegetation all around, and of course that border area and the transition of biomes. I know though, a lot of what we've looked at thus far does have that heavy focus of what was there in Cyrodiil and Oblivion originally. This is still Beyond Skyrim, so some of those Skyrim features are coming here too, like Radiant quests will be in Cyrodiil. The devs mentioned how there'll be several of these throughout the region, and it's really just meant to make things feel like Skyrim, because this mod is really meant to be an extension of Skyrim. The quest progresses from there with us hiding to see who picks up our hidden note to uncover what smuggler operation is operating in this area. This involves quite a bit of stalking and hopefully not being recognized along the way until we discover their hideout and we can report it to some local soldiers. Then we commence an entire raid and kind of a dungeon segment of this quest. During this, we can see quite a bit of new content, individual items that are being added with this mod, as well as even some of the creatures. The Imperial crossbow will be a new thing added with this. It is largely just a crossbow, but it's one of the small things that'll make things feel different as you cross that border. And the devs expand on this, mentioning how even though there's going to be a ton of new content added in within Beyond Skyrim, not much of that's going to make its way into Skyrim proper, with Cyrodiil having some changes around the border between Cyrodiil and Skyrim, but otherwise Skyrim will largely remain intact in its own original form. Although, as the devs mentioned, inevitably there'll be a lot of mods for the mod that will change that if you want it. And here we get that particularly awesome conjuring and combat gameplay with a Daedroth. The spell effects are clearly custom and redone for this, and they look absolutely amazing. And although this looks cool, this is just far cooler. The Daedroth just really steals the show here. This entire loop just looks incredibly fun and like something I am very much so excited to experience, with them later conjuring a Flesh Atronach to take the Daedroth's place when it does falter in combat. But as they are showing off some of these new spells, they do describe how this is a system that got a fairly notable expansion expansion. There will be the reimplementation of a bunch of spells that were in Oblivion and were not in Skyrim, but they're taking it even a step beyond that, in an expansion in some of the classes that are not fully fleshed out in Oblivion and will get more attention with Beyond Skyrim Cyrodiil. During all of this, we see more of that VFX work and things just look absolutely incredible. We've seen some previews of this in the past, but actually seeing it all come together in proper gameplay, properly in a dungeon, it just looks great. Honestly, I think these look even better than what Bethesda did themselves with some of these Skyrim VFX for the spells. And one of the cool parts about this is, even on a broader picture, as we're doing this quest and as we complete it, they describe how they're paying attention to choices in this mod. Us going through this dungeon and kind of going the more combat route is just one of the potential 2 major options with this quest. And you could do the same quest in a very different way where your outcome would be different and your gameplay along the way would be different. And this is not just going to apply to this quest, but several of the quests across Cyrodiil that you will be able to do. It's just nice to see this mod project, even as they are kind of writing their own quests, taking us to some familiar locations, but with custom content there, that they aren't just keeping it simple and things will be a bit more expansive. Later on, they show off a secondary quest as well as another phenomenally good looking location with the Chapel of Julianos, and they describe here how a sermon is about to begin. This being another new feature where sermons will be conducted by priests on a schedule and some of the local townsfolk will come and attend them, this making things feel even more alive. Overall, it's just a brief look of some of the content that was shared and shown off by this team during their several hour long live stream and with this new trailer. And looking at it holistically, you just have to consider that this is just one location. Of course, it's one of the major locations, but there are several locations like this across the mod, and it's just proving to be something massive and monumental. What they're doing here across Beyond Skyrim overall, but even just across Beyond Skyrim Cyrodiil overall, is just truly insane. And each day as we get closer, I get more and more excited to experience this, especially with previews like this one. If you want to check out any of this content for yourself, or even check out some of the other updates they've recently shared, I will have a link to their Discord down below. But with that said, as always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.